from the heart of rural France. This is the Keto Woman podcast, brought to you by me. Hello Keto lovelies, I'm Daisy Brackenhall, and I've spent most of my life struggling with my weight and confidence, and have always had a difficult relationship with food. Even when I finally got to my target weight, after weight loss surgery and eating low carb, I couldn't maintain it and I was miserable. I've been keto now for over 2 years, and it has given me the freedom to fall in love with food again, without the constant gain, loss, guilt, virtue cycle of before. Health and happiness is where it's at now, running on fat. Welcome to the Keto Woman podcast. Each week I'll be chatting to inspirational women, maybe even the odd man, to discover the secrets to their success so that I can share them with you. So what is keto? Keto is a way of eating that enables you to switch your body's main fuel source from sugar to fat. Who doesn't want to be a fat burner, right? But how do we achieve this? A great place to start is by keeping carbs under 20 grams a day. So things like leafy greens and above ground vegetables, plus some nuts and seeds and the incidental carbs you find in things like full fat dairy. Choose delicious fatty proteins and be free and easy with oily dressings on salad and butter on your veggies. Once you're in the swing of things, you can tweak it to suit you. Make your own personalized keto. You'll hear all sorts of ways to keto from my guests. There is no one way to do keto, no one size fits all. I hope to show you just how flexible and fabulous this way of eating can be. I'm not a doctor, and most of my guests won't be either, so we really can't give you medical advice. It's always best to consult your own doctor when making big changes to your diet and lifestyle, because they know you and your medical history, and so have access to the bigger picture. Wouldn't it be helpful to have one place where you could find all the links? Want to sign up to my new Patreon exclusive Facebook group, Daisy's Lovelies? No problem. How about subscribing to my YouTube channel? Please help me notch up my first 1,000 subscribers by going to links.ketowomanpodcast.com and following the YouTube link. Not following me on Instagram yet? Hit the Instagram button. You get the idea. All the buttons, all the links you need are at links.ketowomanpodcast.com. Thank you, Jessica Davies, for supporting me and this podcast by making a pledge at my Patreon page. Do you want to hear your name here at the top of the show? Are you enjoying this podcast and would like to help me make more episodes? Then head over to my Patreon page at patreon.com/KetoWoman or hit the support button on the Keto Woman podcast website. It means a great deal to me, and you will get to headline the show just like Jessica did today. Thank you for tuning in to episode number 125 for the second part of my conversation with extraordinary woman Trudy Tellis. Trudy lives in Vancouver, British Columbia with her husband and sons and takes care of her mum who lives with them, plus Coco, her dog, of course. Trudy owns and runs an organic chai and spice company called Trudy Ann's Chai and Spices, and you can buy some of her fabulous tea and spice blends on her website, trudyanschai.com. She also runs vegetarian cooking classes online and attends many events in the US and Canada with her teas and spices. Sign up to her newsletter to find out when she is going to be in a town near you and go meet her in person. Trudy asked me to make it clear that Bach flower remedies are different for everyone and that you can't necessarily use the same one as somebody else and expect the same outcome. She mentions a specific one that she used later in this episode and wanted people to be clear about that. Trudy really is one of those whirlwinds of a woman and has so much to share. I hope you enjoy catching up with the rest of our chat.
Well, I have another, it's not a funny story, but I was going to have brain surgery in 2011 initially. And I told my husband then, okay, as on a bucket list thing, I want to go visit our friends in Argentina, just in case something goes wrong during brain surgery. I have checked this off my list. I mean, it sounds kind of funny, but that's kind of who I am, the person I am. Like, in case, I've done it. Well, guess what? I go to Argentina. I was thrown off my friend's horse and I had to have hip surgery in Argentina. So brain surgery.
It had to wait.
That's what I mean. I've eliminated a lot of stories, but this is tied into recovery. That's the only reason I mention it, not for sympathy. But it was in Argentina that they pointed it out to me, the doctors there, the surgeons, they'd never seen anybody on that much metformin ever, 2,500 milligrams. They said that's unheard of in Argentina, is how they worded it to me. That was just a freak accident. And it was kind of silly because I had stopped doing dangerous activities. And here I go. And I got forced into doing something I didn't want to do. Just like we are forced into eating things we don't eat. What's the difference? Nothing. You know, you eat food you're not supposed to eat. You get diabetes. You go on a horse you shouldn't have gone on. You fall off of it. I mean, but today, that hip pain, that took, so 2011 to now, 2000 and I'd say 18. That's a long time. And finally, I can do like squats and Tai Chi, and I can stand on that one foot. And I can feel it's really strong. But Daisy, remember, I'm doing a lot of longer fasts, and I'm also eating a lot of fat. So because I'm skinny, I actually eat, I make fat bombs like green tea and stuff like that. But my body needs the fat. But if I was trying to lose weight, I would not be overdoing the fat in my case, right? I don't know. I have this like mantra I say to myself, and I say to everybody, whatever you're doing, whether it's food or you're trying to, I don't know, climb the top of a hill, you just start somewhere, but you start. Like, it's okay if it's raining, put on some rain pants, get an umbrella, and just go out and honor nature. This nature around us, it's a gift. Like in Vancouver and a lot of cold places, people are often depressed because it's dark. Well, catch even a little bit of light and go out. And if it's raining, put on that raincoat and walk to a forest. If you don't live by a forest, go touch a tree. Just touch it. You know how much healing can be from that, and not having your cell phone around you or the computer and all of that. That's a huge part of my healing. It's not just on the food. Like this past week, I had the flu, and my sugars crept up, but it was having, this cold and cough. But at the same time, I've noticed I take on more than I can handle. My blood sugars go up, like not just a little bit, they've gone up to 150.
It definitely has a big impact on you, doesn't it? Stress. I forget what they call it in Japan. There's a name for it, but it's a prescribed therapy, isn't it? To go and spend time in nature, but in forests in particular. It's actually something that's prescribed, an activity.
There's also an expression, like the Japanese, they'll stop eating before they're full. And they say they have a lot of really great longevity there. And I'm totally I've always tried to, as a child, I couldn't overeat. It's funny how our bodies that suddenly went into this overeating mode, especially about when we have a medication as a crutch. Also, the Japanese have this beautiful expression. I love it. They say Itadakimasu, which is for I give thanks for the life of this food. Being so mindful, if you can't eat organic, just eat clean food. If you can't, eat. I try to eat less of the expensive things, but I'll make sure they're still part of my diet, a little bit. And things like organ meat, they're not expensive and they're so good for you, I remember when my boys were little, we had this a babysitter. She was Mian, from the Mian community, and she never gave my kids my white bread sandwiches, whatever I gave them, not white bread, whatever I gave them, right? She was giving them, I went to see, broth with, I remember it being bok choy and little liver in them, little bits of liver, not a lot, like a teaspoon. And I thought, what a smart woman, right?
Yeah. Perfect nourishment.
Yeah. It's funny when like I said, I learn a lot from poor people and simple people all over the world, not just India. You just talk to anybody here in your environment. Go talk to someone who's an elder, who's like in their 90s, drink tea with them, ask them stories. They're like historians, right? I sat down with one of the women in India. She's a single mother. I was staying with my brother. He actually has a rehab center there. And this single mother came to me and she said, oh, I have all these aches and pains and eczema and blah, 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 the whole list. I said, well, what oil are you cooking with? Number one. And it was all the heat treated, canola and all this stuff. And I just told her that night, I said, okay, can you make, I gave her some Indian oils that would work, but you're not heat treated. I said, also, you need to throw out all the carbs. But I talked about soy, and it's on all these biscuits that you eat. Just look at the back. That's what it says, the additive and chocolates. She comes to me the next day and she says she's feeling so much better. And she said, and she tells me in her language, right? So she said she took all the biscuits everything. She told her daughter, I'm going to take all our food. This is not healthy. And she called me the doctor. She said that I'm not a doctor. I said, oh, I'm just like a food doctor. I know about food. Because in India, if you don't use the word doctor, no one's listening to you. I said, I just know food, So she said, there's a food lady and she told us that this is poison. She wrapped it up. This is an 8-year-old daughter. They wrapped the stuff in newspaper and they went and fed it to the dogs. And she told me she's going to use the oil, the heat-treated oil, as a candle to light at her altar. I mean, that made me cry. Like, look at that. She's a simple woman. She hasn't read any textbook. And she started doing it right away. And I called up to check on her. And she said, she had migraines. And I talked to her about having salt. She had migraines for 20 years. And she listened to me. She's poor. She's supposedly illiterate, but she's not illiterate. She just didn't go to school. That doesn't make you illiterate. And she's doing it. And why is it so hard for the rest of us? Just a question, right? Anyway, I have a little picture of her. I think it's in my Instagram page, on my IG video, somewhere on my page. It's so sweet. Like she's feeding me her food. Just showing love, through food. So I think that was the highlight of my trip to India, actually.
I bet. Yeah, I can imagine.
That moment.
Real connection.
Right?
I think it's also very interesting. Some of the most savvy celebrity chefs, they go for their inspiration to the poorer households, because that's where you find the creative cooks. Anyone really can make a fancy dinner with fancy ingredients. There's not a huge challenge there. Okay, yeah, if you want, Michelin star stuff, that's more of a challenge. But, if you're given these fabulous quality, luxurious ingredients, you're going to be able to serve up a feast fairly easily. Now, if someone gives you a pile of odds and ends and scraps and the poor, quote unquote, ingredients, now that's where there's a challenge. And it's the people who don't have the money who are faced with having to make something, create something out of the ingredients that come up with the most fabulous recipes.
So we have she was like a household help. In India, people, it's very common, I guess, to have household help. And this lovely woman called Anjali has been with our family 30 years or more. She actually used to help my mom. My mom's used to be a dentist. And she ended up being my mom. She used to work in her clinic and ended up being my mom's caretaker too. Now my mom lives with me. So Anjali was the one who I was telling her not to fast. And she fasted 2 days a week, right? For her diabetes. No, she just fasted. That's what they do. She's such an intelligent human being. I then apologized to her and I said, I'm sorry, I told you that your fasting was, you need to eat food for your diabetes, because I told her what the Western world told me, keep eating food for your diabetes. I've been calling her up from here I'd say a couple times a month to check on her. And she knows I'm not a doctor, but I'll say, okay, go get your lab work. And we're gradually tapering her medication. And her sugars, I think, went from something like 180 down to 100. And she says, I don't listen to these doctors. They give me the medicine. I just take the prescription, but I'm taking everything in half. And I'm teaching her how to be I said, yeah, you can totally fast, but I'm giving her tips I know. But what I do when I go to India, we sit together and we're trying to come up with breads, like Indians like their chapati. So how do we do traditional breads with the traditional old flours, bhakri and things that don't have the gluten in them. And it's fantastic to come up with these recipes. And I'm gradually going to put them on my website. I have a lot of Indian vegetarian recipes, but I'm trying to, gradually build on it. It's just like, as you know, I'm a one-woman show. I manage my business. I write the newsletters. I have to, come up with the recipes. It's so much work, but it's so gratifying when someone like Anjali, again, supposedly illiterate, but she's not, she just hasn't gone to university. And she's so intelligent. She knows she taught me about fasting. I had to talk to her. And how here I want broth. I want a tea. And you ask someone, well, what do you eat when you fast? You ask the poor people, they go, what do you mean? I fast. They'll say, we have water and we have black tea. We fast. And then I ask my rich Indian friends, I just say, oh, how do you fast? Oh, no, we do a cream fast, which is, some kind of oats or some kind of rice with cream in it and all that stuff. And I'll go, well, how is that going to be a fast then? So that's why I go and hang out with the have-nots, and I just want to make an impact on people, but it's so hard. Like I said, I'd love to do like a show on just how do they do it there without the books, without the podcast. But what people do is someone like me comes along and they trust me. They have to trust you. And I happen to be Indian. So an Indian who's eating Indian food, I'm not eating Western food. I'm telling you, eat ghee. And they look at me going, we can eat ghee? I said, yes, eat ghee. It's good, So it would be great to have a show on how traditional cultures, like in India, do it. And it helps that I speak their language because they're freer talking to me than they would to an interpreter. So nothing is really left out,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the wealth of knowledge, like you say, it's just the stumbling block they have sometimes is passing it on, or you say, because they don't have the education potentially that enables that. But you can access the information, you just have to go and talk to them. And the way they pass it on is just literally, isn't it, passing it on from generation to generation. And that fantastic experience and knowledge that just gets passed down and only really gets corrupted when these other usually Western influences come in,
right?
And they start down the track of the sugar and the bad oils and things like that.
Yeah.
And it's only when you went in, like the woman you spoke about, and you reminded her, and going back to those roots and get rid of this and get rid of that, that's your poison, and you'll be fine.
Like, I don't have the funding to do a big documentary, but I just next time I go, I'm just taking my video, my little phone, and I'm just making little videos of these people just to get the message out there. It doesn't have to be a fancy camera, because I feel like this message is so urgent. And especially to the people that I see at these events I go to, they're coming to me with an oxygen tank and buying a tea. Yeah, great. I'm glad you buy my tea, because I can then make more videos. So I can go to India and help more people. But I'd love it if you spent like whatever, I don't even charge that much for them. Take a video, get a one-on-one coaching, and educate yourself, right?
I'm interrupting for a moment to tell you about Superfat, a company that I really like because they are A, really nice people, and B, have really delicious products. They've recently started selling 2 of their nut butter flavours in large 6.2 ounce pouches, and I just got mine today, macadamia coconut and cacao coconut. I particularly love the macadamia coconut because it has no sweetener in it. So if you're sensitive to sweeteners, you will love this naturally slightly sweet pouch of yumminess. Who doesn't love chocolate though? The cacao coconut is sweetened with a light hand and has a touch of cinnamon running through it, which is just heavenly. The pouches are really easy to open and reseal, so super convenient to have at the ready in your gym bag, car, or on your travels. Don't take my word for it though. Try them for yourself and let me know how you like them. I only shout about products I really like, and I really like these. Please go and have a look at superfat.com and use code DAISY to get 15% off your order. I also have a link on my links page at links.ketowomenpodcast.com, as well as in this week's show notes. I also happen to have a secret stash of a new and exciting product range launching early April. Listen out to find out all about it in the coming weeks. I'll also be doing a live unboxing and tasting. It's a hard life being a podcaster. Thank you for taking the time out to listen. It really helps me when companies like Superfat partner with a podcast, and I also like sharing great products with you. Let's get back now to Trudy Ann.
We've talked about stress earlier. So when I go to India, one of the magical moments for me is I'll wake up at 4:30 or 5 and I'll go out to anywhere. Like when I'm in Bombay, my relatives live right by the ocean front. But no matter where you go in Bombay, you'll see hundreds of people. They're walking, they're greeting each other with this Hari Om, or they're doing the sun salutations, not like in a fancy yoga studio. They're out there with nature and bowing to the sun.
Literally.
And people
Yes.
will have, here it's like, wear your sexy yoga clothing. And I mean, you know what I mean? It's not about the fashion industry. Get out there. Don't wait to be part of this clique. Go on your own if you have to and take a walk. Don't wait for a friend. Just get up and do it. Because in the end of the day, it's your body and your friend is not holding your hand. You have to hold your own hand on this journey. And that's what I told myself. I told my family, if you want to do what I'm doing, fine, but I'm not asking you to do it. This is how I'm going to eat. And I just did it. And gradually, I've noticed they've all changed their diet, but not because I forced them to.
I love the idea of the videos. I don't know if you've seen, someone posted a little while ago. It's to do with, I believe, it's Italian pasta recipes that are getting or have been lost for all intents and purposes. And it's this wonderful video series where the person goes to grandmothers and spends time with all these Italian grandmothers who show them how to make pasta that they've been making for years. And they've recorded all these videos and these old recipes that otherwise would be lost. And
Right.
it just made me think of that when you were talking about going and recording some of these conversations you're having in India with people. I think you're right. I think it's very important to document that. And it's a really good way of helping get the message and also just collecting some of this information that otherwise is going to get lost.
So growing up, when I went to the family home in Mangalore, it was a big family home. We had my grandma's cookbook, which was her mother and grandmother's recipes in there. And that book got lost. But unbeknownst to me, my mother had been rewriting these recipes because it was days before, cell phones where you take photos and scan. So she rewrote the recipes. And actually, I wrote a cookbook. This was pre-keto, but it's pretty low carb. And in the book, a lot of these old recipes and a lot of the pantry was this humongous room, and it was filled with pickled, fermented things like lemon, and you'd have mangoes. And I mean, I don't even know. I was a kid, but all these things, but fermentation was a big part of it. Like, for example, with soy, traditional Japanese cultures, they didn't eat soy the way they had it today. It was fermented food, and just a little bit like medicine. They weren't supposed to do tofu shakes like I did or give your baby Soy Formula. And if people want information, they should just go to Weston A. Price Foundation. It's all there. I've even had references to that on my website. So traditional, I think, we just have to start getting back to the basics. And the more we cook at home, the less plastic garbage we have, and the less plastic we're opening from a plastic thing or wrapped in plastic, the better for our planet. Our planet is just hurting and crying. At least we should think about that. Our bodies, our planet, future generations, sustainability, about so many things,
And you've mentioned your other love, your love of chai, and you've mentioned tea a few times. Just tell us a bit more about that. It sounds like it's something you really get into, the whole blending it for different teas for different ailments and things as well. By the sounds of it, it sounds like you have a very sort of healing philosophy as well as just a love for tea, I assume.
Yeah, it's funny. I forgot about my chai business because I'm so gung-ho about like trying to heal people right now. And absolutely, I should tell you a little bit about it. So I grew up, tea was not really part of how I didn't enjoy tea, but it was such a cultural thing. You sit around the table, you're British, we drink tea, the neighbor comes by, pops in. Yeah. Mm-hmm. One of the first things I said to you, Daisy, the only thing's missing is we're not drinking tea together. But it'll happen someday. So when I came to North America, one of my aunts in India, a token aunt, not a real aunt, Pramila, she introduced me to like masala chai, which is tea with all these spices. She's from the Gujarati community, and this community in India from Gujarat, they are so smart about putting healthy and healing herbs together. And you got to learn from them. So I would drink this masala chai when I was sick or just like every day, and it was great for my throat. And at that time, I was a special ed teacher, so I was just drinking it for me. And then when I moved to Canada, my friends were like, you should really open a chai cafe. And I'm like, nope, I like my life. I don't want a cafe, but I'll think about it. So basically, it started from this masala chai as a hobby because remember, I had the epilepsy then. And then customers kept coming to me and saying, we want a rooibos tea. And I was such a snob. I said, I'm from India. I don't make a rooibos tea. I just do black tea. But then they persisted. And basically the rooibos I've learned I do a rooibos chai. And I've learned I do other blends. So every time I'm sick, so the nausea, I come up with a blend. So I've come up with one called the soothing tummy tea. And I try it on myself, and then I give it to a few customers. And I had a customer in a wheelchair, severely disabled, like he has caretakers. And he basically emailed me saying, Trudy Ann, can I have your fennel tea? I had it at black tea at the moment. Can you make it with rooibos for me? So I catered it to him, and he said it was the only tea that could help with his digestive issues. So I started to meditate a lot. I didn't want to go to Google. I don't like to copy from other people. I don't like it when people don't use their own built-in. We all have built-in gifts. Daisy, yours is how you can draw the best out of us. Mine is telling you what I make and stuff, So I happen to also do energy work. I do Reiki work. So I started meditating a lot can I be directed to the right herbs? I just want to find a way to get these. And it kept building up. Like I had a sore throat. So I remembered my mom would give me this one tea, turmeric, ginger, holy basil, and licorice root. And holy basil or tulsi grows in all our gardens. So something's got to be medicine if every Indian, has it at a central location. That became such a top seller because people were emailing me. I had it for throat issues, which had worked. But they were telling me their inflammation went away and they stopped pain medicine, and there was this lineup. Anyway, basically, I have a lot. I don't even have them all on my website because some of them sell out faster. Then I can. It's just me. I need help. I really need help from my company. But then a lady from the farmers markets I sell here in Vancouver said, "Hey, Trudy, and the only thing we don't have are spices, like Indian cooking spices." And I was like, is she kidding me? That's so much work. And I said, yes. I thought, if I say no, someone's going to have a really cheap spice. They'll make it in India with all the additives and it'll not be organic. So I basically started oven roasting spices. And that's like an old traditional culture because that's what we did in India. We roasted everything. And I was lucky enough. I had the job of taking the big grinding stone, like those big mortars. I don't know if you've seen them. They're like at the size of a big iMac. They're huge. And I would grind the spices on that, right? So I started toasting them like a garam masala and all these things. So much work. People can see the difference. You can smell it. I'll mail you. I'll pop some in the mail to you because actually that's pretty easy to send over because butter chicken, you like
fantastic.
Your butter chicken.
And the smell. I'm a bit of a lazy cook these days, but I have periods of time I've got into, and when I want more of a special occasion type meal, I'll often get some of my Indian recipe cookbooks out because I do love Indian food. I never used to actually. Growing up, I used to hate Indian food. I hated the smell of it. My family used to love it, but I figured out it was just one ingredient that was.
It's the curry patta leaves or the fenugreek.
Fenugreek.
Fenugreek, yes.
It took me a while to identify it. And it was only when I got into Indian cookies, I went to a friend's house. He's Indian himself and also a fabulous cook. And he made just this banquet. There were lots of us there and I tasted his food and I said, I don't understand. I've always thought I don't like Indian food. Your food tastes amazing. So there's obviously an ingredient in what I have been that I just thought of as a typical curry powder smell. I would smell it in the restaurants. I smell it in the food. And it's one of those things that taste how it smells, fenugreek, isn't it? Yeah. And that was the ingredient that was in everything that I don't like. And as soon as that's out of it, I love.
Did he not use it?
He didn't really use it. Certainly in the recipes that he was making, it wasn't really there or not there enough. I think probably in the Indian restaurants in the UK, maybe they're just too heavy-handed with it. And so it was just too much of a dominant flavor.
So a tip for people who like cooking Indian food, open your windows. Just open your window, put the fan on, close your bedroom, open the windows. It's so important. And there are these curry leaves, Kari, and I wonder if that's how the curry word came about. But the curry patta plant is very pungent. But there's a certain technique and a way to pop these seeds in the beginning, and there's a whole method. I should make a little video and put it on my website or something, But I don't use the fenugreek in any of my spices except one. I use it in one spice for toasting in the beginning, but that people don't have to buy that spice if they're allergic to it. But did you know that fenugreek is one of the remedies for diabetes in India and for joint ache? Fenugreek seeds.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I knew it had sort of properties, but wasn't aware that's what it was used for.
Yeah, for arthritis too. So what they do is, and I know because my mother was all about the home remedies, so we still do it here. I take a teaspoon, I soak it, then I sprout it because I really soak and sprout my food, and I have it the next day. I either chew it or just drink it up, but they have to be sprouted. But I know there are people who like you will comment on the odor of fenugreek even if they ingest it. So, obviously if you don't like it, don't have it. I have a cookbook too, which I wrote, which is what gave me all the stress and the insulin in the first place, because I gave myself a timeline. At the time, I didn't know about keto and the way I eat. But the funny part is, if you look at my book, I, in a way, was implement all my recipes are low carb. It's just there's like one recipe that talks about rice, about biryani. It's there, and everyone can have a treat once in a while. It's not something you'd eat once so in a way. And I do give references to Weston A. Price in my book and all that stuff. And so I have the book, which that's just awesome. It's a storybook actually. So I have all my old stories in it. It's supposed to be a storybook for my children, my nephews and nieces, and I decided, let's make it a recipe book. And
well, that's the wonderful thing about food, isn't it? The memories that are invoked with different recipes. It's funny when you mentioned that storybook. I made a recipe book for my brother for his 30th birthday. I was trying to think of something to do for his 30th, one of the big 0 birthdays. And my sister suggested making a recipe book. And it ended up being a monumental thing because, of course, I had to do it properly. So I had to learn how to use InDesign to do it properly. And it ended up taking me weeks and weeks and weeks. But anyway, in this book were recipes, some from our childhood. One I can remember that was my stepdad used to have a couple of meals that he always cooked. That was in there. All these different recipes that were in there. And then the pictures, instead of trying to find pictures of the recipes that wouldn't have worked very well, I used it as a sort of family picture album. So throughout, all the pictures were of them as babies and all sorts of family photos throughout. And it turned out, it turned into a really lovely thing. And it just reminded me of that when you said storybook, because I think that's the thing with food and recipes. They usually just surrounded by this big hug of memories and people attached to them, aren't they?
You could totally sell it today, if you wanted to, your book. If you wanted another project. Anjali, who I mentioned earlier about her having diabetes, her recipes are in the book, and another, like family, friends, and relatives. I have, like you mentioned, I have some personal photos there and a lot of tips. And anyway, I enjoyed it. I wish I hadn't rushed myself. And I've definitely learned since then not to rush the process. But part of my business, I am always uploading recipes. And it used to be just healthy recipes. And now it's definitely switched to, let's just talk about low carb. And of course, if they don't have health issues, they totally can add, healthy rice or quinoa, other things to the food. But even in my cookbook, I talked a lot about fat, and I talked about moderation, and I talked about what type of sugar to use. So I was aware of things even then, So I do the farmers markets in Vancouver, and I go to these craft shows around Vancouver and Canada. But lately, I'm really trying to go to more USA events away, because I find that there'll be, say, thousands of people that come to an event. And they've come to buy tea or they've come to buy craft shows. But I find, because if you're real, I can easily convince people, and not convince, but I try to educate them about what I'm doing, like the keto, reversing metabolic issues. But if they don't want to buy anything from me, at least I can send them and say, here, take this card. And at the back of the card, there are links to all the healthy, and half the people I've promoted, they don't even know I've promoted them. They're all over my website. Like I've got the books from various, like Asim Malhotra's, site is there. I've got your site over there. Just everybody I listen to is on my website, because I figure at least get your knowledge from trusted sources rather than some gimmick on the internet or people that plagiarize the good people. There's a lot of people just copying the rest of us who do the research.
And we'll make sure the links are in the show notes. But where do we find all this fantastic information?
So if you go to trudyanschai.com, like my website, like my name, sorry, Everything is there. And Instagram is definitely one place. Again, I'm at Trudy Ann's Chai, where I have fun. I put videos up on, especially I've just learned how to do these live videos, and it's kind of crazy when you're trying something new for the first time because you make mistakes, but it's all part of the fun, I guess. So I find like these videos are great because those who don't want to pay for stuff, they just get the free knowledge right there. But if people sign up for the cooking classes, all of this is on the main page. They're going to get like personalized emails from me on a like regular basis with specialized recipes for them. They can email me, like say they want to tailor their diet for to a certain whatever their issue is. I can help them with that, or especially vegetarians or even vegans. I can help a vegan to be a good vegan. By good I mean eating good fats. Like when I was tried eating raw vegan, I was eating like a lot of really good healthy fats and a lot of nuts, but soaking and sprouting. Right, you've got to do all the good stuff. Oh, I'm on Amazon too. Just now, I put a few products there because I'm exhausted trying to manage everything, and that's just one way I want to make time to be in my kitchen. I want to make time to meditate. I want to have time for my family. And just if you knock at my door, Daisy, I want to stop what I'm doing and drink tea with you. Mm-hmm. You come first, because how often are you going to knock on my door? The cell phone's there every day, right? It's so important.
Yes, it sounds like you're very busy. You need to carve out some of these
yes moments. And no. Yes, I am. As we are all as busy as we make ourselves, right? Certain periods of the year, I'm working 18 hours a day for 11 days as a show in Toronto. And if I hadn't been doing keto and fasting, there is no way I could be the way I am. I know I see other people dropping like flies, even people that help me. And I'm still I'm tired, but I'm feeling fit, like ready and alert.
So you're still interested in the vegetarian side. You mentioned earlier that you're not a vegetarian yourself by the sound of it.
No.
You eat meat, but you're interested in the vegetarian recipes. So you have a class for that as well.
Yeah, because I grew up in India, and I feel like for me, I don't need a lot of meat. I definitely enjoy meat, but like I'll have a tablespoon of pate or not a lot, just. And in my case, I can't have a lot of animal. I have it, but over the top, my pancreas is crying. It just cannot. And I'll have to take insulin. I also take like digestive enzymes and other, vitamins and stuff to help me. But I'm interested in vegetarians because I meet a lot of vegetarians, and I see these on posts all over these fasting sites. I haven't actually replied to them because I have to be careful. I don't want people to think I'm plugging my business. It's a very delicate line, and I don't want to be kicked out of these sites. So I see people asking for help, and I'm like, let me help you. I actually have a tea. I can help you. But I dare not mention it because I don't want to be banned from something because, you don't want to be on a site selling your vitamin.
Yeah.
Even though I'm a member, it's okay if the group mediator decides to share it. That's a different thing. Mm-hmm. I've noticed a lot of vegetarians saying, how can I eat a bread? How can I have my chapati? How can I get my protein with dal? And I can tell them how I did it. Actually, I would have to email. It's not even on my current cooking class, but I would totally just make a recipe and post it on my website. I'm so happy to do things like that because, when I was struggling, and I know you've struggled too, Daisy, there was nothing for us. There was nothing, I think I've spent, I don't want to count how many thousands of dollars on just gimmicks. I never get conned, and I got conned at one of these Ayurvedic places in Kerala into buying stuff, and I did because I was desperate, and then I realized, oh, this is just a gimmick, and people laughed at me in India. They said, you went there? Ah, ha, ha, ha. It's like, well, I've lived in the Western world, and, I'm human. It's not like I don't have treats. Like I needed my chocolate or whatever, some treats all the time. And I realized that if I had certain things around, I'm going to eat the whole thing. And keto, I'm talking about keto. And I think a lot of us have been, it's keto, we're fine. No, it's not fine because, again, your body has this high sugar. Even on a keto thing, you can have a high sugar. So I started making my stuff in little mini tubs, putting what I would eat for the day, like where I can reach it. And the rest, I would climb a step ladder and put it out of reach. Like in the beginning, I was so bad. Interestingly now, say you put a chocolate bar in front of me, it's too sweet. I eat like 100% dark chocolate. I'm fine with it. And I've noticed when I have foods high in magnesium, I'm not taking my magnesium supplement My cramps in my legs went and I needed those magnesium powders. I'd spend, I don't know, $40 a month on those things. I'm just eating early in the day, a little bit of dark chocolate, just 100%, and some almonds or that are soaked and sprouted, some seeds and nuts, and no cramps at night. Isn't that interesting? Food. Let food be thy medicine.
Yes,
it can
exactly. Food is your medicine. It's very true. You were mentioning earlier, and I'm going to have to go and look up more about it, and you kindly said you'd look it up for me, but you mentioned the flower remedies, and I just thought it was an interesting conversation we had while the record button wasn't pressed. Because it sounds like it's something that's quite important to you, and it ties in quite well with all the with your philosophy on what you eat and your business and the teas you make. It sounds like it ties in quite well with that. But you found it very beneficial. That's what I was finding very interesting.
We all have an emotional component to us, right? We get angry or we get depressed or we get sad. Each one has their own issues. I used to have a lot of anxiety, just because I'm alone. Like for you, Daisy, you're doing this podcast. It's you. End of the day, it's you and your name on it. And so that's a lot of responsibility on you. Right? So I have the same thing. I have these teas and it's pretty much me. I have a little bit of help. So there would be a lot of stress building up. I listen to very smart people, right? And so sometimes I come across as being smart, but I'm not smart. I mean, I have common sense and I always rely on my common sense. So I started to think about everything I learned from it as a child. I went way back and I remembered, someone in Mangalore, everything happened in Mangalore for me, my summers. And I remember I had some allergy or something, and I was taken to some clinic and they gave me these drops, Bach, BACH, Bach flower remedies. Two things happened. My aunt took me to the ocean, salt water, because I had all these issues with eczema then. And I know I have to go into the ocean. So went there and she gave me these remedies and changed my diet a little bit too. I don't remember. She changed it. And that went away. The eczema and whatever health issues I had, she'd rub all these leaves and stuff. So it really was interested. And also after having pancreatitis and all these drug allergies, right? I was even brain surgery. I was allergic to pain medication. So by the way, after brain surgery, pain medication was not working. That was my story. So recently, I would say the last 1 year, I've been watching different family members and I noticed and I said, why am I pointing fingers at other people and their issues? Look at myself. I have so many issues. And one of the things is I have impulse issues. So if I see something, like for example, the fasting, I have to do it immediately and I do it really well. And I thought, and if someone's not doing it the way I want them to do it, I get annoyed. And I thought, well, okay, that's their way. It's not your way. It's fine. So I said, what can I do if there's like this chocolate in front of me and I want to eat all of it? And my self-control, my meditation, all my other work is not helping me. So I have all these books, like a library of healing books. And I opened one of them. I don't know why. That was my energy work that took me to the book. And it was Bach Flower Remedies. So I started reading a book, no internet, reading the book. And how they treat you is not that you can say, oh, I have a zit on my forehead, I want to get rid of it. It's what else is happening inside your body. Let's talk about the other things, your emotions. So the remedies treat to like sadness, but is it sadness because someone died? Is it sadness because it's dark outside? So there's a different remedy for different things. And I think what it is with these drops, I found things like for myself, I have three that I'm taking right now. One is just for anxiety, which actually I don't have that much. It's almost non-existent. I did take some before the show today because I was nervous about the technology part of it. And it helped me, like rescue remedy. One thing worked. I did take something. This is great for the food people listening. One remedy in particular, I used it for myself for impulse control and addictions, like addiction to food, right? And I noticed it's been 2 or 3 months, I am not craving a dessert or a treat every day. And that was big. And then suddenly eating 100% dark chocolate. So suddenly this is no longer an addiction. And and I know it's to do with the only change at that point were the drops. And also it used to make me irritable. So that's part of impulse control to the same thing of my personality. And I notice I'm a lot chiller now. So I would suggest yes, you can go to a doctor and you got to tell them there are naturopathic doctors that can treat you with this. But because I know my body better than anybody else, I was able to treat not only myself, I've treated a member of my family who was not able to get out of the house at all in years and years and years, not able. And I had this person on, I just don't want to name names, but I had this person on a very, had them eating clean food and they were doing everything, but they were just terrified of leaving the house and talking to strangers and all of that stuff. And again, I used Bach flower remedies because remember, they were eating clean food and doing the fasting. So we had that under control. I mean, we fine-tuned that part. And I prescribed remedies. And this person is now out of the house, going up. They've told me this. They're going out. They're talking to people. They've joined groups. Yeah. So to each his own. But I feel like these flower remedies, they've never spiked my sugars. I've used homeopathic medicines too, but I have an auntie in India who, not a real auntie, but an auntie who is a homeopathic doctor, and she's helped me. But be careful because there's a lot of quacks out there that'll take a lot of your money. And then don't just self-medicate and go on Google and try and remedy. I'm just a little unusual because I do know a lot about plants and food and just for my interest.
And what was the one you used for the cravings?
I knew you'd ask me that. It's in my case, cherry plum, CHERRY, cherry plum. And it's great if you have a lot of anger. But again, for anger, it's like in my case, I think I shoved it aside, but you have to think about it. If I've had, you fall off a horse, you've had pancreatitis, you've almost died, and I'd always come out smiling, like I'm like a rock, and people look at me and they come to me to get encouragement and they come to me to lean on me. So how can I start showing how vulnerable I am, right? So sometimes we have this public figure that we have to show people, but I have to say I'm a very I'm in the core. I'm actually a pretty strong person. Like something can be dealt to me and I'll go, okay, let's deal with this now. You want to know a funny story? I was on the floor and I got hit by this, I got thrown off this horse right in Argentina and my son was little, my youngest son. And he goes, "Mommy, are you going to die?" And I looked at him and I said, "Oh no, Rowan, it's going to take more than a horse to kill me." And then I looked at my sunglasses, my prescription, and I went, "Oh great, they're new and they didn't break." I mean, that just gives you, what can you do, right? This is what you were dealt. But I feel like now it's time for me to deal with those emotions. Like I can't keep shelving them. They're part of me. And I think when I meditate, I play the piano. I love music, Daisy. I even have a washboard. Like I manage a community band in Vancouver. This band, I don't really do very much now because the band's been around like 10 years, but I'm like the band mom. I take Shy, for rehearsals and stuff. So that's a big priority for me, like making the space for me for maybe these remedies, the music, crochet, walking, calling up a friend and say, "Hey, you want to come over, drink tea?" Making a space in the week, whether it's one day to truly say, everything stops. And if I don't do this, everything is going to come back up. Like whatever the disease might be, it might be anything, right? It might be anything. I can't say what it might be. Like in my case, the busier I am, the more energy work I do. Like I'll wake up in the morning, I'll do candle meditation. And I mean, like, honestly, I could have like a whole workshop on it, but it's so important. You can spend all that time researching the best keto diet and you could be eating the best of food. And I know I was doing that, but was I meditating? No, I wasn't. Was I doing any of this? No, I was too busy pleasing everybody else and taking care of kids, which, that's part of being a parent. But I feel like the days that so sometimes, we go, "Oh, why is it not happening to me today? I want to sell 1,000 books or whatever, and it's not happening." But then I'll get a blessing in a completely different way. It's just something that's completely different will come my way. And I go, "Oh, wow, maybe I should make a tea to help these." Like I've had very close friends struggling with major, major medical issues. And I'm actually right now trying to make a tea for this person. And I hope it works, So giving space for ourselves. And if you can't meditate, get one of those coloring books and just color in them. Those are great. You don't have to have like some fancy skill,
Yeah, so it's that combination, isn't it, of switching off from everything, but also focusing.
Yeah.
It sounds like two things that are opposed to each other, but it's focusing your energy away from all those distractions for a while, isn't it? And that gives you that period of rest.
What do you do for space for yourself?
Oh,
I'm curious.
I was hoping you weren't going to ask me that.
Oh, no, you don't.
I'm not.
Oh, no.
I'm not very good at any of that. I need to investigate things like that a lot more. I'm not in a very good headspace at the moment, if I'm perfectly honest. Life's a bit of a struggle, so it's something I need to probably investigate a bit.
I think what I should do, and you've given me ideas as I'm sitting here, is putting a little video up on my whatever YouTube channel and teaching people simple tips, something it's like so manageable, like a candle meditation, something that I did when I was. So maybe, you've given me food for thought. And every time I have food for thought, I look at it like a blessing. Like, oh, how nice. If that means this person can have some relief. Like, I go for these, when I first launched my cooking classes and I was all excited. I'm the savior. I can help these other people like doctors and say, who are so busy and they're doing podcasts and they need to send people to sites where, hey, go take the class, do the here's someone else who can coach you. I'm so busy. So the first time I went for the class to sell these things, wherever online, I was so depressed because people were just saying, no, I'm not ready for it. I'm not ready to heal my body. And I know it takes time, but for me as someone who's trying to make more classes and try to make more videos and, and I self-funded all these things, we are just self-funded the project, I'd like to apply for some grants so I can make more of these and it would be so nice to do. I decided to turn it around, and rather than get depressed about, I don't have the funding to make more videos, I discovered these Instagram videos and I can reach people that way who don't want one-on-one coaching. They just want to have some tips. But again, I need to not overbook. I need to make sure I'm very conscious of what I'm saying yes to.
Absolutely. It sounds like you have a tendency to towards the overworking end of the scale.
But why do we do it? Do we ask ourselves why we're doing it? Why are we overworking? That's almost a question for ourselves, right? What are we escaping? Maybe ourselves.
Yes, it sounds like it ties in a little bit to what you were saying earlier about pushing down some of those emotions. So perhaps, yes, that's something you need to take that bit of that space to, as you said before, let some of those emotions come back up.
Yeah.
And work with them.
Right. And journal writing is awesome. I like journal writing. Sometimes I don't have this now, but when I used to be in the angry days of like, oh, I'm sick and I have epilepsy, blah, blah, blah. I used to write stuff. And if a particular person would, the thing about the seizure, which nobody actually knows about, and now they will because I'm talking about it, right before a seizure, like say I'm going to get one tomorrow, my body, some wiring in my brain got manic. And I would just say, if you, even though you're my good friend, you said something, not intentionally, maybe you said, Trudy Ann, turn the volume louder, something as simple as that, I would lose it. I would go absolutely manic and mental, like just saying stupid things. And the next, within an hour or whatever, I would have a huge seizure. And then I forgot what happened, maybe conveniently. I don't think I forgot. I conveniently didn't remember. And I was totally normal. So when I was in the seizure investigation unit, I told them about this. I said, I'm otherwise a pretty happy, nice person. Oh, right. That's from where you're, it's all to do with your brain and the wiring and the seizures. And now that doesn't happen at all.
Interesting.
Crazy, right?
It kind of makes sense that it's that sort of yin and yang bit that it would go like that before it then shuts down basically for a period.
But journal writing at that time helped me. And if I was specifically angry with someone or whatever the situation, I remember reading it and I would try to forgive myself and the other person. And if I couldn't do it, I would rewrite again the next day. But honestly, yeah, that was a great tool. But honestly, it's once I started this complete clean eating and the fasting that I saw the biggest change in my moods and emotions, from not being blue. And I mean, I've been kind of rarely blue, but I was, I can take myself out on a dark day. And now I don't journal write as much, but the drops definitely help for for other things. And also, I've noticed the good fat. Like, I cannot stress good fat enough, even though I know a lot of people have weight issues, but uh, really good fat got me back healthy again.
Well, it sounds like it was something that you mentioned before. It was something that you held on to throughout. You never really let go of it.
Yeah. And, also growing up in India, it was not always easy, right? You think about how you grow up. We had to go through like things like there were rain and there's floods and food was rationed. And I remember just so many of these things, our house more than once had waist deep water inside. But one of the things my brothers and our dad, he died too young, but he was like a dentist, but also a stand-up comedian on the side. So we always found a way to find humor in something chaotic. Like, here we have wasty water in the house, and my brothers and I were trying to find a joke. Like, oh yeah, great, no school tomorrow. Our house is flooded. Like, yeah. Here's something interesting. When people discover keto and I've got to exercise, I have to eat this food, and it becomes like something their body needs, or go to the gym and work out. I am the same way about meditation and energy work. And I find that when I do it every day, even if I don't get what I want for that day, but I think I'm given what I need for that day. I don't know if that's, I might want a lot of things. I want my blood sugars to go down to whatever, 5.5 or 5, my A1C, but having a sugar of currently fasting of 4.9, not every day, but, on most days when I'm doing the broth fast, that's pretty darn good considering I take insulin 4 times a month. And that too, if I'm taking it, it's something like 7 units. I only need insulin when I'm eating late at night, or like I've been sick this week and I intentionally ate more, and I figured you're not so well this week, eat more and take some insulin. And I definitely know that the beta cells are recovering, and I'll tell you how I know. So say in the past, I needed 14 units of insulin if I ate at a certain time. I ate late, for example. If I give myself that much insulin now, 14 units of NPH, it's not a lot actually. My sugars have dropped down to as low as 2.7, which is not a good thing. So right now, I don't take any more than between 2 units, which is nothing, and 7 units, tops maybe 8, but no more. And that means that even though, I'm not a doctor, obviously, but my understanding of this is that even though my body will just take longer to digest that food. So I need to give my body the space, and it may not drop down all the way to like 5 points I need it, but I'll take 5.5. And having insulin 4-5 times a month, it's so awesome. It can be done, people. Like, I'm following the rules, and I still, if I follow them to a T, then it would be all I'm eating every day is bone broth. And I want to live life too. I can't have broth every day.
No. As good as it is.
But Daisy, just to add, like on my cooking classes, and I think the newsletters too, I have a lot of, like anyone can sign up for my newsletters. They just go to my website, subscribe. Sometimes it's just saying, hey, I'm going to sell tea at this event. And of course, if the event is in your city, I'd love to meet people face to face and talk to them. I typically go to like Toronto, New York, San Francisco, Seattle quite a lot. And sometimes I'm trying to go to Portland and Chicago, but I haven't worked that out yet. But the newsletters have tips, and then the cooking classes the whole class are pretty much tricks and tips. I like to call them like tricks and tips. So yeah, and I'm going to keep trying to support. I see my role in this journey as a support person to all the rest of the keto bigwigs that we know, the heavies, as I like to call them, whether you're carnivore or vegetarian or vegan, or you have all of these other people. I like to say that my job, my role is I'm supporting them, because there's not enough people doing it. We think there's a lot of people eating clean. No, that's not. Just travel and look at people when you're not at a keto conference. And there's so much work ahead of us. So I'm just like a small blip in this journey.
Bit more of a whirlwind, I think, than a blip.
Tufan. They say in India, Tufan. Tufan is the storm.
Oh, really? That's what you are. Well, you've shared lots of tips with us already, but perhaps you could leave us with a top tip.
That was so challenging for me because I seriously have so many, but it came down to what almost killed me and what restored me. So I would say for a top tip, look in your house, and if you have the heat-treated oils, those heat treated things, canola oil, anything that is basically super cheap. You've bought a huge jumbo gallon, use it for, even if you're using it for deep frying, don't. And instead, switch to things like butter, ghee, and the ghee you can make it at home too. It's not that difficult. I'll try and post a recipe. Coconut oil, pure coconut oil, the unrefined, olive oil, avocado oil, and flax oil. And I think flax oil is great with the omega-3, and it's just awesome, I think. My tip is, no matter if you don't want to throw your bad oils away, put a little bowl, make a homemade wick, with cotton wool, and light a candle. Like make a candle and meditate with it. That's one way to say, I spend money, but yeah, get rid of it. The second thing is soy. If you're eating fermented soy, have a little bit in moderation. There's definitely companies that make good sprouted fermented soy, right? Soy is in everything, even something that says pure natural chocolate. If nobody's listed the ingredient, if it's not at the back, turn the back of all your packaging and look at it. Soy lecithin is in everything. Chocolates at the duty free, biscuits, preservatives, noodles, name it, and tofu. And so remember, it was the soy at the time and I was having the heat treated oils. And it took me about 20 years later to figure out, it wasn't just the medication, it was all this other stuff. And the thing is, I'd had a flare up before with soy that almost had got me into a hospital. But the doctor told me to, eat simple and clean, like no oils, no nothing. And I wish he had told me then that's your lifetime. That's going to be your lifetime health journey. So I can just say from being in intensive care, people just, if you're vegetarian or vegan, and a lot of the vegan vegetarians live on soy, a lot of new moms are giving their baby soy formula. I have a link to all of this, especially the soy, again on my website. You just have to go to the main page, scroll to the bottom. It's there. If not, it's on Weston A. Price Foundation. If you want your protein and you're vegetarian, lentils, mung bean, sprout them. And again, I think, I know there's a link to soaking and sprouting, and I can send you all of those, Daisy. So yeah, have good fat. If you feel the cheat urge coming up, get out of your house, walk away. Just no matter if it's raining or it's a snowstorm, just get out, stand outside your front door for about 10 minutes and then come back in. And if you still feel like eating something, make a little fat bomb. It's better than having some white bread and other stuff. I hope that's a good tip.
Very good tips. Well, it's been fascinating talking to you. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you for sharing some of your busy time with me.
Oh, thank you. Thanks so much for having me. I really, it's such a joy to be able to impart knowledge where that people who are going to listen to your podcast, they're listening because they want the knowledge. So it's nice to give knowledge where you're not forcing anyone to listen, because it's so disheartening when you tell a story and people go, thank you very much, I'm just going to take my pill. Yeah. So it's great joy for me to be in your presence too. Thank you so much for what you do for the community.
Well, thank you. It's been a great pleasure sharing this web space with you for a period of time.
Thank you.
To get the resources and links from this show, please go to ketowomanpodcast.com/episodes. Please share this podcast with as many people as possible by sharing one of my links or just taking a screenshot of an episode that you enjoyed. Reviews really help raise the profile of the podcast, which gets it in front of more people, but also helps me attract a wide variety of guests. So please take a minute to leave a review on whichever podcast app or platform you like to listen on. It doesn't go unnoticed by me, the people who regularly like, share and comment on my posts. Your support really does mean the world to me. Thank you. Are you enjoying this podcast? Help me make more episodes and videos by making a pledge at my Patreon page, patreon.com/KetoWoman. Or simply hit the support button on the Keto Woman Podcast website. Don't forget to join in the fun on the Keto Woman Podcast Instagram and Facebook pages, and Daisy_Keto Woman on Twitter. Are you my next extraordinary woman? Maybe you've got an idea for a show, a topic you would like to hear about. Let me know how I can tickle your earbuds by dropping me a line at daisy@ketowomanpodcast.com. This week's end quote is from Conor McGregor. Be grateful with everything you have and you will be successful in everything you do. Bye-bye, Keto Lovelies.